Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The sentencing hearing came down for Arthur Pawlowski. The Calgary street preacher took part in the Coutts border blockade protest during the pandemic. The World Petroleum Congress is taking place in Calgary. Our province's energy minister explains how Alberta is doing its part when it comes to reducing emissions. And recovery efforts continue and mass graves are being dug following the collapse of two major dams in Libya.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Hundreds of supporters gathered at the Lethbridge courthouse on Monday as controversial street preacher Arthur Pawlowski received a sentence. Pawlowski received 60 days plus time served for his role in the Coutts border blockade. The judge, however, gave Pawlowski 60 days credit for time already served. The Crown was asking for a sentence of 8 to 10 months. Video journalist Micah Quinn has the story.
The street preacher played to the crowd following his hearing and spoke with members of the Lethbridge media.
I always said to the government officials, leave me alone. Please leave me alone. Let me do what I'm good at, which is feeding the poor, preaching the gospel, and just being a church. You don't have to come and listen to me. However, let me do my job. And that's what I did in the past 3 years. I did my job. I am a shepherd. I stood by hurting people. I did my best. You don't have to like it.
Back in May, Pawlowski was found guilty of mischief and breaching a release order for his role in the Coutts border blockade in early 2022. Prosecutors said to the court that Pawlowski's speech at the border convinced the protesters to stay longer and to, quote, hold the line. Pawlowski told us that he will now appeal the guilty verdict.
The sentencing actually was quite reasonable. The judge was very thoughtful. He put, the precedents before us, and I think he came to the right conclusion if I was, in fact, guilty of a crime. However, like I said, I should never be arrested. I should never be charged with an offense. I was there in the capacity of a pastor.
For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Meanwhile, in Ottawa, a member of the Quebec Provincial Police says protesters were resistant to clearing the street during the Freedom Convoy in our nation's capital last year. Captain Etienne Martel says a line of police barely managed to move 150 meters over a number of hours because the crowds refused to leave. Martel also said the protesters were nonviolent. Tamara Leach of Medicine Hat and Chris Barber of Swift Current face charges related to their role in the protest. The Crown has said it hopes to prove Leach and Barber encourage crowds to hold the line as police order protesters to leave the area around Parliament Hill. Alberta's energy minister says our province continues to lead the way when it comes to carbon capture projects. Brian Jean says more than 11.5 million tons of CO2 have already been safely stored underground. Jean made the comments as Alberta's hosting the 24th annual World Petroleum Congress. He says Alberta's oil and gas industry has invested billions of tax dollars to help reduce emissions. He says our province's hydrogen, natural gas, critical mineral, petrochemical, and renewable energy opportunities continue to attract attention and investment. The Congress, which is led by WPC Energy, is a group of nearly 65 member countries from around the world. Alberta Health Minister Adriana LaGrange says the province is launching a new reporting dashboard to help keep track of respiratory illnesses, including COVID-19. It'll be available in the coming weeks. Now, there are currently 559 cases of COVID, including 5 deaths between August 28th and September the 8th. She says it's very important for everyone to follow hygiene protocols as kids are back in school and more people are spending time indoors. Cami Tanner is the founder of Herbal Apothecary here in Lethbridge. She has some ideas on how you can naturally boost your immune system during this upcoming cold and flu season.
Taking astragalus root is a really great one for boosting the antibodies in your body. And also it helps to reduce inflammation and helping with the respiratory health. So making sure your lungs and your upper respiratory are nice and healthy and strong to kind of prevent those viruses coming and entering the body. Elderberry is a classic, again, high in antioxidants, helping with upper respiratory, echinacea, things that we should be taking now to be preventative for when those things kind of hit.
Cami Tanner from Herbal Apothecary will have more details on how you can naturally boost your immune system coming up in the second half of our program. Well, the first day of fall is not until Saturday, but it'll feel slightly cooler before that time. Angela Stewart is in now with an early peek at the forecast. Angela, we may also see a little moisture here soon in southwestern Alberta.
Hal, can I just say that I'm really excited for fall. It's, such a pretty time outside. The leaves are changing. You got to break out all those comfy fall clothes, maybe indulge in some pumpkin spice lattes if that's even your thing. We are also coming off of a very hot summer. We had plus 30 temperatures for a majority of the summer. There was also lots of wildfire smoke. So the cooler temperatures, like you mentioned, I would say is kind of a nice break from the heat. Having said that, it's not going to be too cold, which is nice. A nice happy medium, if you will. Now, speaking of those cooler temperatures, a little bit of moisture is also expected this week. We might even see some light rain starting tomorrow. And then cooling off to a high of 16 for tomorrow. Lethbridge is also expected to remain in those mid to high teens, even at times reaching up to low 20s. Also kind of expected to see a bit of cloud coverage throughout the week and heading into the weekend. As for how the rest of the week is shaping up, I'll have all those details coming up later on in the show.
Great. Thanks so much, Angela. There are reports coming in that warnings about dams in northeastern Libya went ignored for years before so many structures collapsed, leaving thousands of people dead and many more missing. Experts had long said that floods posed a significant danger to the two dams meant to protect close to 90,000 people. More than 11,000 people died and more than 10,000 are still missing following the devastating flooding in the eastern city of Derna last Sunday. One survivor in the region recounts the terrifying sights after the Derna floods.
فهنا تمت ايش؟ نبحثوا كل مره نلقوا فيش في عماره طايحه. درنا اغرقت بالكامل. في 10 دقائق كانت المدينه غارقه. فنزلنا وطلعنا لقينا أمة لا إله إلا الله. الناس ميتة قاعدة في الشوارع والسيارات متكسرات والحيشان كلها منتهيات.
Meanwhile, search teams continue to bury flood victims in Libya. Government officials vow criminal cases will be launched over the dam disaster.
وضحايا مختلطين ليبيين ومصريين وسويدين ونساء ورجال وأطفال وشيوخ مخلط أسر بالكامل. ونهارا عمارات طبعا احنا انا شخصيا والله ما مشيت الى درنا انت يعني ما مشيت لكن ما نشوف في الفيديوهات وعارفها درنا يعني عارفها بالحي وبالشارع فاهم شوف مكان انهيارات عمارات هوني بالكامل واسر بالكامل.
The worst earthquake in more than 100 years devastated regions of Morocco and left more than 3,000 people dead. A reporter with CBN, Chris Mitchell, made the perilous journey with an Operation Blessing caravan to take relief supplies to those most in need.
Many of the roads to remote villages in the mountains of Morocco have been impassable for days. The Operation Blessing team convoy had to stop at times so heavy machinery could clear the roads, with the danger of rock slides possible at any moment. As we drew closer to the epicenter, we witnessed increasing destruction and thousands of people living in tents on the side of the road. When we got to the village itself, we saw a bird's eye view of the extent of the destruction. After a 5-hour ride, one flat tire, and several stops along the way because of rock slides, Operation Blessing's team made it here to this remote village on its mission of mercy to bring hope and help.
We're one of the first one, to arrive here in this couple days that the earthquake happened. So we are very happy that we made it. We made amazing connections here to support these villages that are unreached in this point, and we're bringing vital supplies. Food, water, solar lamp. There's no electricity here. We're here because we can show the love of Christ, first of all, as you know.
This is one of the thousands of buildings that were destroyed or damaged by the earthquake. You can see how destructive it really was. This one is personal because the brother of one of the Operation Blessing volunteers died in this place. Rashid looked to the house where his brother had died.
This is the place where he died, and we're really heartbroken. The only thing he left is his sandal. The people here don't have anything. Everything was destroyed. So you see the people gathering and helping each other in these villages. Not only my brother died, but many others died too.
In all, 47 people in the village died, including a pregnant woman.
This is what God puts in our heart, just to go and help these people. And I'm really probably meet with you guys and be working together. It's just a blessing for us to have you here with us.
I want to thank Rachid for opening his village, his house, so we can come and help you guys. We are with him and your families in this very difficult time of sadness.
I love to be a part of Operation Blessing. This is what God put in my heart to help these people.
This help is made possible by those supporting Operation Blessing.
So we say really thank you and God bless you guys. And we're just really happy to have you with us because we need you now.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, at the village of Tagantef, Morocco.
That's incredible. The war in Ukraine continues. The invasion by Putin's Russian forces has continued unabated for 19 months. Is there any end in sight? Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari with the Foreign Desk gives us her thoughts.
There is no end in sight because of the different sides fueling this war. It's actually turned into somewhat of a proxy war, right? So the United States sending billions of dollars to the Ukrainians along with military support. And then on the other end, you're seeing Iran and North Korea and China and other nations sell weapons to Russia's government. And of course, the people inside these countries are the ones suffering. The Russians being forced into war, young men, and of course, on the Ukrainian side, having their homes and their cities bombed really to dust.
Lisa Daftari will also discuss how Iran is barring inspectors for monitoring its nuclear program. She'll have details coming up after business news. 5 American prisoners sought by the U.S. flew out of Tehran on Monday and landed in Qatar. Part of the deal with Iran also saw nearly $6 billion in Iranian assets unfrozen. 5 imprisoned citizens with the Islamic Republic will also be allowed to be released from prisons in the United States. The exchange unfolded while a major American military buildup continues in the Persian Gulf. American government officials say U.S. troops may also board and guard commercial ships in the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of all oil shipments pass. The prisoners walked down a ramp and were greeted by the U.S. ambassador to Qatar, Timmy Davis. More than 20,000 customers in Nova Scotia remain without power after post-tropical storm Lee blew through the Maritimes over the weekend. Most of the outages remain in the Halifax area. Meanwhile, in the western part of New Brunswick, around 13,000 customers are also without power. The U.S. National Hurricane Center said Lee made landfall on Saturday, packing winds of almost 115 kilometers an hour. The cleanup continues in many regions. Now, folks in the New England area south of the border also felt some of the brunt of Lee, but many say things could have been a lot worse.
I've never seen anything like this ocean right now. Hurricane Lee visited us, as many of you know, and it's wild, absolutely wild. I'm at this beach every day with my big, beautiful dog, and when I pulled in and saw all these cars, it was shocking. And then when I got out and saw the surf, it's just incredible. I mean, we've been seeing these swells all week, so we knew something was coming, but never seen anything like this. Oh, absolutely, we dodged a catastrophe, yeah. I mean, if this hit us head on, of course, this area right here is the highest point on Cape Cod. So, you know, I'm 150 feet up, which most is sea level here. So, you know, we're pretty protected in this area, but, you know, we were very lucky.
Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and Industry Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne met with top executives from Canada's major grocery chains on Monday. Executives from Metro, Loblaw, Empire, Walmart, and Costco are in Ottawa discussing measures to stabilize food costs. Grocery prices rose 8.5% year over year in July. That is a slight easing of price growth, but still running hotter than overall inflation. The Retail Council of Canada said grocer profits have nothing to do with the rising cost of food, pointing instead to higher costs being passed on from manufacturers and producers. Minister Champagne says bottom line is that Canadians need more competition to help bring down the prices.
The dynamic of the market, you have to ask the player which represent 80% of the market to come, each of them, because I want more competition. I want more competition. That's what I want. So by saying to them, agree on an outcome. So the outcome has been agreed. Now you want to let them compete among each other so that Canadians can see the benefit of competition. One of the things in Canada, it's not only about what I did today, but you have to remember what we've announced when we were in London recently. We announced the largest package of reform in competition, I would say, in the last few decades.
Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's catch-and-release bail policies have unleashed a wave of violent crime across Canada. Poilievre and the Conservatives say Bill C-48 will make some much-needed changes to strengthen Canada's bail system. He said much more needs to be done to protect Canadians. He says if this bill is passed, it'll help keep violent repeat offenders off the streets and behind bars.
Today we have a bill that partly reverses the damage that this Prime Minister has caused. We all know that after 8 years of this Prime Minister, life costs more, work doesn't pay, housing costs have doubled, and crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder are common in our streets. We know that his policy of freeing repeat violent offenders the same day they are arrested came to us in Bill C-75, supported by both Liberals and their coalition partners. In fact, the NDP wanted to go even further. What are the consequences of their catch and release policy? Violent crime is up 39%, homicides up 43%, gang killings up 108%, aggravated assaults up 24%, assault with a weapon causing bodily harm, 61% increase. Sexual assaults up 71%, sex crimes against kids up 126%.
Residents of Hay River in the Northwest Territories were allowed to return home over the weekend after being forced out due to wildfires last month. Hay River residents say the town was fine, but nearby land along the highway is simply unrecognizable. Residents say for the first time in a very long time, the sky was clear on Saturday night, allowing locals to finally see the northern lights. Environment Canada issued air quality statements as wildfire smoke rolled back into Saskatchewan. The department says smoke from wildfires is now pushing eastward from Alberta. The statements cover the western half of the province, including Saskatoon, and reach as far south as Leader and Davidson. The weather agency says the smoke should be mostly out of the province by Tuesday. The Sound of Freedom came out of the gate smoldering hot in theaters just a few short months ago. Now the Movie Mill here in Lethbridge has decided to give out free tickets to the film. We asked Leonard Benning, the owner of the theater, why he decided to showcase the movie to moviegoers free of charge.
A big push behind Angel Studios marketing was a pay it forward program, and they had a goal of offering 2 million free tickets to the general public. They've surpassed that. They've hit 17 million. We've had many customers that have paid it forward and bought tickets along the way. And now that it's nearing the end of its run, we've had it for 2.5 months. We want to be part of this program. We want to pay it forward. And so for 5 days, starting Sunday the 17th, ending Thursday the 21st, we're offering about 120 free tickets a day for the 6:30 evening showing. So it's going to be approximately 600 tickets we'll be giving away this week.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. By the way, The Sound of Freedom has made more than $190 million worldwide at the box office since its release on July the 4th. It's incredible. A group of local artists is doing its part to create more love in our community by creating a mural called All You Need Is Love, just like the Beatles classic. The mural is being spearheaded by Stephen Oniago, who is a cinematographer with Legend Productions. He explained the idea behind the theme.
I grew up with love for everybody. Like, that's how I was taught to grow up. Like, you don't discriminate anybody. You don't discriminate, literally don't discriminate anybody. Like, everybody is your brother, everybody is your sister. And so just that alone, and what I'm seeing happening in the communities, like, people see somebody who is homeless in the community. Yes, they don't have a house. That could be you tomorrow. Like, it's a very small step between you being okay today and tomorrow you end up on the streets. We are not very different. Those guys are our family. Those guys are our friends.
A lot of great color with that mural. By the way, there isn't a timeline for when the mural will be completed, but Oniago says he hopes to collaborate with more artists in the future to create more pieces. The 42nd annual Toy Run took place over the weekend, and officials from the Southern Alberta Bikers say it was a huge success. Bikers from all over Southern Alberta gathered for a day full of events, including a parade and poker rally, where cash donations and stuffed animals were collected.
By time it came time for the parade to roll out, we had a count of about 155-ish bikes by time we got back to Honkers. So the parade was a huge success. Like I said, about 155 bikes, and the support from the biker community as well as, the public. We had members of the public dropping off cash donations and teddy bears and toys and stuff. And so I can't even tell you how overjoyed and ecstatic we are with the success of the event.
And Hardy says over $2,500 was raised in cash donations. Congratulations. Well, we were slightly above our seasonal average today, which is about 20 degrees, but cooler temperatures and the possibility of showers may be on the way for Lethbridge. Complete weather details are on deck. You know, it's pretty amazing how quickly the leaves are changing color here in southwestern Alberta, and the first day of fall is not until Saturday. Angela Stewart is in now with all of the weather details. Angela, it'll start to feel a bit more like fall before the weekend with cooler temperatures, and we may even see a little bit of moisture as well.
Yeah, Hal, we can expect to see some rain make its way over our region starting tomorrow, but that's kind of it when we're talking about rain for the rest of the week, with temperatures cooling off to mid-teens, sometimes reaching up to low 20s. 16 expected for tomorrow with rain, like I mentioned. 15 for Wednesday with lots of sunshine, so a great day there. That cloud coverage, like I mentioned, for the remainder of the weekend, heading into the weekend, 16, 20 for Thursday, Friday, and then 21 and 20 for the weekend, and rounding out the rest of the week. Our average high for this time of year is 20 degrees. Our average low is 5. 35 degrees was the highest temperature back in 1981. -6 was the lowest temperature back in 2006. Our sun rose at 7:12 this morning, expected to set at 7:38. That puts us at about 12 hours and 26 minutes of daylight for today. When looking at temperatures across the country now for Tuesday, there is rain to be expected out on the coast and as you move inland for Vancouver and Victoria. High teens, 17, 18 for Vancouver, Victoria. Rain is also expected there for the remainder of the week, so keep that in mind. Edmonton, Calgary, kind of the same deal. 13, 15, cloud coverage for Edmonton and rain for Calgary. Now, to our friends east of us in Saskatchewan, there is a special air quality statement for Saskatoon. So when we're talking about a special air quality statement, we're talking about poor visibility that can also have an effect on people that suffer from lung conditions like asthma. The reason why there is a special air quality statement there is because of wildfire smoke that is in Alberta. It is pushing and making its way into Saskatchewan, but only Saskatoon is the area that is primarily being affected by that. Not so much for Regina or Winnipeg. For the rest of the prairies, 18, and then 28. Beautiful conditions in Winnipeg there for tomorrow. Lots of sunshine. Temperatures and conditions for the central part of the country tomorrow. Rain throughout and cloud coverage for Ottawa, Montreal, and Toronto. Mid-teens, shooting up to low 20s. For tomorrow, 22 for Toronto, 18. Lots of rain for these areas, so keep that in mind if you are there. Now, when we're looking to Atlantic Canada, you guessed it, rain and cloud coverage. So it's kind of gloomy across the country for tomorrow, and that's going to be expected for the rest of the week as well. 18, 22, 20, and 15 for Fredericton, Halifax, Charlottetown, and St. John's. And 22 and 20 is kind of the average temperature that is to be expected for tomorrow. And that is a look at your full weather forecast.
The backlog of airline passenger complaints with Canada's transport regulator has hit a new all-time high. The Canadian Transportation Agency now has more than 57,000 customer complaints to deal with. Many are dissatisfied over cancellation and subsequent compensation more than 3 years since the start of the pandemic. The numbers reveal an average of more than 3,000 complaints per month have piled up at the regulator over the past year. The annual pace of housing starts in Canada dropped by 1% from July to August. That's according to the latest report from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. The National Housing Agency says the pace of multi-unit urban starts decreased 1%, while the rate of single detached urban starts rose 2%. Unifor's contract with Ford is set to expire just after midnight. The union is negotiating with Ford in hopes of reaching a deal that can be used as a blueprint for workers at both General Motors and Stellantis. Unifor has said it is focused on improving pensions, increasing wages, and securing good jobs in a future set to be dominated by electric vehicles. The talks continue as auto workers in the United States are already on the picket line. Alberta's premier says legislative changes could be needed in light of the recent E. coli outbreak that affected many daycare centres in Calgary. Daniel Smith was asked why a central kitchen that supplied daycares affected by the outbreak was allowed to remain open despite health violations noted earlier this year. She says there's not a mechanism in the Public Health Act to permanently close a kitchen, including those here in Lethbridge, but that could change. She said recommendations for changes to the Act could be added by those from a panel led by Preston Manning, which will examine legislative reforms that should be considered coming out of the pandemic. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 129 points on the day to finish at 20,492. The Dow was up 6 points to 34,624. The S&P 500 was up 3 on the day to 4453, and the Nasdaq was up just under 2 points to 13,710. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.58 to $92.35 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 9 cents to $2.74 US. Gold was down 13 cents on the day to $19.3372 US an ounce, and silver was up 21 cents to $23.24 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $9.66 per bushel, barley's at $7.40, canola's at $16.90, and corn is at $8.89 per bushel. Live cattle October contract was up 60 cents to $186.33. Feeder cattle were down $3.13 to $254.25, and lean hogs October contract was up 13 cents to $83.25. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.13 US. Recapping one of our top stories, hundreds of supporters gathered at the Lethbridge courthouse on Monday as controversial Calgary street preacher Arthur Pawlowski received a sentence today. Pawlowski received 60 days plus time served for his role in the Coutts border blockade. The judge, however, gave Pawlowski 60 days credit for time already served. The Crown asked for a sentence of 8 to 10 months, and the defense was looking for the time served. Is there any end in sight to the war in Ukraine? Will a peace deal finally be brokered anytime soon? Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari weighs in with her thoughts in just a moment. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's local stories, be sure to visit our website, bridgecitynews.ca.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. Streets Alive Mission is hosting the Ride for Refuge fundraising event Saturday, September 23rd at Henderson Lake Park. This family-friendly event allows for your choice of a 10 or 20 kilometer bike ride or a 5 kilometer leisurely walk around beautiful Henderson Lake. Enjoy the great outdoors, raise donations for a great cause, and win fun prizes for the whole family. Plus, enjoy a free dinner afterwards. All funds raised will go towards supporting Streets Alive Mission's life recovery programs. Sign up online at rideforrefuge.org/Lethbridge. Discover a new activity that you love. All are invited to Give It a Try events, hosted by the Lethbridge Sport Council. It's a great opportunity to try your hand at a new sport, like climbing, badminton, handball, and more. Events are free to attend. Register in advance by visiting lethbridgesportcouncil.ca/program/Give It a Try. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
The United Nations Nuclear Agency is slamming Iran for banning several inspectors from monitoring its program, which leads many to believe that Iran's going to become even more of a nuclear threat to the West. Now, to chat about this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, from the Foreign Desk, who joins us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, tensions between the International Atomic Energy Agency and Iran continue. What comes next?
You know, it's a good question. You'd think that the Iran regime, when they tell us that they're not going to move forward with their nuclear program, or that it's for peaceful purposes, or that they're keeping it under, a certain level in terms of uranium enrichment or weapon delivery, that they would be transparent and allow the inspectors to come in. But over the last 2.5 years, we have had them shut down 27 surveillance cameras. We have had them deny access to the teams that are coming in internationally to check them. And of course, we know that they've been enriching uranium anywhere from 60 to 80%, which is way over the allotted amount. So what appears to be happening, unfortunately, is from both sides, we're seeing this kind of dance between the White House and Iran's regime, where they will move forward with their weapons program to a place where the White House will then say, but we need another JCPOA, another nuclear deal. So in the last hour of the Biden administration's term in office, we may see another nuclear deal come to fruition, perhaps even earlier than that, where then they'll claim that's the crown jewel of their foreign policy, similar to what we saw during Obama's time in office, where they will say that this is the only way to curb Iran's nuclear program. Not the fact that, well, where there's a will, there's a way. The fact that they have been marching forward with the program, they have been enriching uranium, and they have been obviously being very dishonest with the international community.
Now, still with Iran, gunmen opened fire on a group of paramilitary forces in southern Iran. There are reports that one person was killed and 3 others were injured. Lisa, Saturday's attack occurred on the anniversary of the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who died while in police custody.
Yeah, so there were protests around the world in commemoration of the 1-year anniversary of her death. She, of course, became the iconic figure, the motivation behind a whole year of protests, protesting 44 years of this regime and saying, enough is enough, we want regime change. We saw protests over the weekend in the United States in multiple cities. We saw them in Canada and in Europe, and of course, inside Iran, across the country. The government came down very hard on protesters. We knew this days in advance. With increased security and lots of warnings for people to not come out onto the streets, and of course came down very hard on protesters. Protesters, of course, being extremely courageous, very, very brave, and thinking really this is their best chance at continuing this revolution and to continue this momentum, this grassroots momentum that has really taken charge over the country. Now, things are not as it doesn't have the same steam it had in the beginning of the last September when Mahsa Amini was killed. But of course, throughout this year, we have seen spurts of protests all over the country. And of course, now the anniversary, a lot of Iranians want to remind the world and of course their own regime that they're not backing down anytime soon.
Lisa, French President Macron says the French ambassador to Niger is being held hostage within the French embassy there following a military junta which seized control of the West African nation back on July 26th.
Yes, so this is the latest development we had. Of course, the French were actually the first to say they wanted their personnel out of the country. The United States followed after that. And now we have, of course, the ambassador being held there really in crossfire and being really drawn into the situation that has not become any better. Of course, the international community is watching this very carefully, not wanting to escalate things, but of course now the French have become involved. So I know the French are playing this very, very tenderly, not wanting this to cause any casualties and to get their ambassador out as soon as possible.
Just amazing around the world how we're all interconnected in some way or another. You know, it's pretty incredible. It appears as though Russia has been doing a lot of whining and dining with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Un was even showered with gifts and taken to a Russian ballet performance following his meeting with Vladimir Putin. What was the main purpose of Kim Jong-un's visit? And it wasn't the ballet, was it?
Well, the ballet was a nice touch. I was just imagining Kim Jong-un sitting at a ballet in Russia, of all places. But of course, he went there to really continue this courtship and this friendship. You know, it used to be that when the United States would sanction a nation, it would mean that it's tied directly to behavioral change, economic penalty in exchange for the behavioral change. And that would usually lead to either isolation or we would see that change. And now you have Russia, North Korea, Iran's regime, China, nations of the world that are coming together and saying, you know what, not only can we work around the United States sanctions, we can have very lucrative deals together. Now, Russia and North Korea have had trades in the past where Russia has bought weapons parts from North Korea. As we know, they're also getting drones and other military equipment from Iran's regime, moving closer and closer to each other and saying, you know what, we're not going to be in isolation and we're not going to let the sanctions keep us down, but we will find very, very profitable deals among each other and we'll stick together. So here you go. You're seeing a lot of these different relationships blossom. And as we saw just a few months ago, China even brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran's regime. So they're really taking a big role on the global stage, actually sidestepping the United States in a lot of different ways. We saw the BRICS meeting just a few weeks ago, where they want to even have a different currency that will definitely move the United States and the US dollar to the side a bit. We're not saying they're going to take over, in terms of supremacy, but they will absolutely be able to maneuver and work around sanctions at the very least.
Are there any countries thinking of brokering a deal between Russia and Ukraine right now? That war is more than a year and a half old. Tens of thousands of people have died. Lisa, millions of people have been displaced, billions of dollars sent to Ukraine. Is there any end in sight to this war?
A lot of nations have stepped up and said, "Oh, we're going to be the ones to do it," as if it's the number one global challenge right now, which it seems like it is. But you know what, Hal? It seems like there is no end in sight because of the different sides fueling this war. It's actually turned into somewhat of a proxy war, right? So the United States sending billions of dollars to the Ukrainians along with military support. And then on the other end, you're seeing Iran and North Korea and China and other nations sell weapons to Russia's government. The United States just okayed another $6 billion to Iran's regime, which of course they're going to be using for weapons development and manufacturing. It's a no-brainer. They would, of course, use that money for that. So both sides being fueled by, outside actors. And of course, that means no end in sight. And of course, the people inside these countries are the ones suffering. The Russians being forced into war, young men. And of course, on the Ukrainian side, having their homes and their cities bombed really to dust. So it's very, very, very unfortunate to watch.
Yeah, very sad. Lisa, U.S. President Joe Biden's national security advisor held 2 days of talks in Malta with China's foreign minister. Will this maybe help the strained ties between China and the United States?
That's what we're hoping. We're hoping that at least on the face of it, we see some sort of, seeing eye to eye, at least on the invasion of Taiwan, which is what the world is standing by to kind of see whether it happens or when it happens. A lot of people believe that it will absolutely happen. It's just a matter of timing. But, as we saw in the past few months, we saw Secretary of State Blinken meet with the Chinese, and he gave them a free pass on the surveillance balloons, on the copycat technology, on so much of it. It was just looking the other way and not really being tough on China for having, their own police force inside New York City, for coming after, their dissidents here on U.S. soil, for setting up labs, for, entering our places of government and penetrating our universities in ways in which they gain access. I mean, these are all things that have to be called out. But we've also seen a lot of tiptoeing around China by this administration. So we'll see what comes out of these meetings.
Now, still with China, there are concerns that the Chinese parent company of Gotion Inc., which intends to build 2 electric battery plants in Michigan, established a joint venture company with a communist Chinese military company way back in 2016.
Yes. So I have actually just placed an article inside Newsmax magazine, which should be coming out at the end of this month, about all the access that China has had in private and public settings in the United States. Privately, we're seeing a lot of what you just mentioned, which is companies that are tied to Chinese companies getting grants, buying up land, buying up farmland, getting access to property that is very close to our military sites. These are all very alarming, and the dots have to be drawn and connected in order to see what kind of access we're giving up. It's not just about buying a piece of land, and then if you're the owner of that land, you're like, wonderful, we have great buyers here, all cash offer, but all of a sudden we're seeing this access we just sold to the Chinese, and again, in very sensitive places, in industries that are extremely sensitive and give away a lot of our technology, give away a lot of our secrets, give away a lot of our military information and intel. So something to keep an eye on if it's not already too late.
Lisa, there are a number of parents groups here in Canada that are really concerned that many of their rights are being taken away when it comes to their child's gender identity in public schools. They're even having a 1 million march says hands off our children that's taking place here. Now, in Canada and the United States, but now there's a coalition of Jewish advocate groups who are suing a California school district, alleging that the school board passed an anti-Israel ethnic studies curriculum.
Yes. This is in Santa Ana, California. Of course, all the crazies are in California, not proud. Unfortunate, very unfortunate. What happened to the days when there was no hatred taught at school, but yet we didn't even have, this month and that month, and we didn't have to stop to commemorate any group, but there was also no hatred of any group. And now we're seeing, all this kind of very charged curriculum wanting to indoctrinate children, whether it's about gender, whether it's about homosexuality, whether it's about anti-Semitism, whether it's about, blacks, whites, color of your skin, just teaching things in such a charged and partisan way. I think the one silver lining to this, as you mentioned, Hal, is how parents are coming together left, right, and center and just want their kids to be free of this. Why should any young child be indoctrinated with anything? They are clean slates, these children. And why are the better question is that why are these teachers and administrators so gung-ho on indoctrinating these children? Are they truly anti-Semites? Are they truly racist? Are they truly pro, gender reassignment to the point that they want to indoctrinate young children? And that really becomes a question. Hands off our children until they're old enough to learn about it, to decide about it. And I'm sure that psychologists across the board would agree that they're also introducing these very serious topics at a young age where it's not even age appropriate. So a lot to unpack here. And I'm so happy that parents have really gained that courage to step up and to unite and to form these groups. And in this case, litigation going forward to stop the anti-Semitism. And perhaps this will set a precedent for other school districts and others around the country to stay away from our children. Just keep it clean.
As many regions across North America have been dealing with wildfires this summer, comes word that there will be a new probe into the Biden administration's response to the Maui wildfires. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, this is interesting because, of course, there were a lot of questions when it came to the Biden administration's response to the Maui fires. First, that it was very much slow and kind of they had to pull it out of the Biden administration. I mean, why didn't he speak sooner? Why didn't he go there sooner? And then not having any transparency about the findings, a lot of cover-ups in terms of the electrical company, in terms of the responses in response to the land purchases that have been recently made there and so on. A lot of this sounds like conspiracy, but I think this investigation will tell us more, whether it is how they handled it and what they're hiding, and perhaps the people of Maui can get better answers moving forward.
Political reporter and host of the Foreign Desk, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us once again from the City of Angels.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Many Canadians are having challenges when it comes to stress and anxiety impacting their overall well-being, especially when it comes to trying to get a good night's rest. Sometimes the traditional Western approach is not always the best answer. Cami Tanner is the visionary founder of Herbal Apothecary here in Lethbridge, and she has some ideas of how to improve our health. Her business houses a wide variety of dried herbs, mushrooms, powders, and teas, and they're all geared toward embracing a more holistic and natural approach to our health. Cami, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You bet. How does the quality of one's diet really impact our overall health? And maybe what are some specific examples of how a nutritious diet contributes to a healthier body?
That's a loaded question because food plays so much into our health and how our body reacts to the food that we eat. It seems like we live in a society right now where everything's grab and go or takeout, and everything is full of stimulants, sugar and salt and different additives to make food taste good and addictive. But really, it doesn't do very much for our health. And so when we get back to a natural diet or a more healthy diet from fruits, vegetables, eating out of our garden, it plays a tremendous role on our health and how we feel after we eat those types of foods.
Let's talk about how eating a lot of the natural foods really plays a role in disease prevention, Cami.
Yeah, so eating natural foods, those are rich with vitamins and minerals, and kind of think of our body as like organic material. We were made out of organic material, so is plants. And so when we're eating like, it attracts like. So it benefits each other. When we're eating those inorganic foods and things that are processed, highly processed, it doesn't match very well with our body. And so it causes a lot of confliction and a lot of upset, a lot of imbalance. And that's why we have so many health issues today.
So what key food groups should we really focus in on for our diets to really improve our gut health? And the gut health really impacts our mental health as well, correct?
Yeah, you actually have more neurons in your gut than you do in your brain. So the foods that you eat is very important for both our physical health and our mental health. So fermented foods are the best. They play such a huge role in our diet and our stomach and our digestion. So eating kimchi, our misos, even our water keffirs and our kombuchas are very important for our gut. But just think as natural as possible. If it comes from the earth, you dug it up and you eat it, that's as natural as you can get. As soon as you start processing it, that's when you're going to start running into problems.
Are there any specific ingredients or practices from traditional medicine that are particularly effective for common skin concerns, like maybe acne or eczema?
Yeah, I mean, some of those are genetic, but there are a lot of things that we can use to help with acne. Tea tree is a really good essential oil. It's very antibacterial, and a lot of our acne is caused by bacteria in the skin. So you can use tea tree. Aloe vera is another really good antibacterial. Frankincense. Diluting those down in a carrier oil like jojoba oil. Jojoba acts very much like our skin's own natural oils. And so it's very healing, reduces inflammation, and diluting those essential oils into a carrier oil of about a 5% dilution is just about perfect. And so putting that on your skin and applying it can help reduce that inflammation, that bacteria growth in the skin, and even using activated charcoal, which can pull out some of the toxins that cause flare-ups.
Are there any ancient beauty rituals or techniques people can use that maybe integrate into their modern skincare routine to help them look younger?
Oh, there's lots of them. I mean, just look back to the Egyptian culture where they were revered for their beauty. Some of their practices were, using Dead Sea minerals and coffee to scrub and exfoliate their skin, taking soothing milk baths, using honey for a facial mask, or putting almond oil all over their skin to protect it from the sun and protect it and heal it from damage. Those are all great things that we can do. Tremella mushroom is another one that is, it's actually phrased the beauty mushroom because it's so good for the skin by improving elasticity and reducing inflammation in the skin. So there's lots of things.
It's just funny, I'm thinking about the cost of milk right now. You said a milk bath. You know how expensive that bath would be? The price of milk.
I'll do like a coconut milk or oat milk bath. That might bring the cost down a little bit.
How do these natural remedies compare to or maybe complement conventional skincare products and treatments?
So if you're looking at, always look at the labels on the ingredients of the products that you're buying. If it's as natural as possible, that's going to be good. But today there's a lot of cosmetics and facial products that are filled with preservatives and alcohol in order to make them shelf stable and make them last, which are going to cause a lot of damage to your skin. And remember, your skin is your first line of defense to your immune system. And so you want to keep that cellular wall and that cellular mortar very strong and very intact to prevent bacteria, fungus, things like that from entering in the body. So you want to really steer away from chemical preservatives and alcohol, but look for those ingredients that are very natural. Hyaluronic acid is a great one to put on your skin that are found in a lot of cosmetics and beauty products today.
I had a doctor many years ago in Calgary when I was a child growing up in southern Alberta here, and he used to tell me, Hal, before you apply any sunscreen to your skin, make sure you go outside for 15 minutes so your skin can absorb a lot of the vitamin D before you actually put that on, so it doesn't reflect it, so your body can actually have the benefit of the vitamin D. He used to tell me that every day, like for 15 minutes, you're fine, but then after that, you should put on the sunscreen. I always found that quite interesting. So Cami, what effect does stress really have on overall health and our well-being? What are your thoughts?
I truly believe that stress is the #1 killer because it affects so much in the body. It can cause heart disease, stroke. It causes depression, anxiety, weight loss. It affects your memory. It is so damaging to the body, and yet stress is everywhere in our lives. It runs rampant. So stress is one of those things where we really need to start being aware of and conscious of what causes us stress and how to reduce it.
I guess diet, exercise, proper sleep. But when it comes to diet, are there any foods in particular that maybe will help alleviate some of the stress, give us a sense of calmness and peace?
Yeah, they're called adaptogens. And what adaptogens do is they go in and adapt into the body where they're needed, and they remove both physical stressors and emotional stressors, because stress isn't just a mental state or how we feel. It's your flight or fight response that is being activated in the body, and it causes wear and tear on different organs and different systems in the body. And so there are foods that we can eat. Ashwagandha is a great one. Reishi mushroom as well are beautiful for reducing stress in the body.
Thyroid disorders are also increasingly common right now. Can you discuss traditional approaches or remedies for managing these sorts of problems?
Yeah, and again, a lot of times thyroid problems can be brought on by the adrenal systems being overloaded, so the thyroid needs to kick in. And so you can either have hyper or hypo, and ashwagandha is a really good one for hypo, for increasing those hormone levels and balancing them back out. Moringa leaf and lemon balm are really good for hyper, for bringing that body back into homeostasis, balancing the hormones, kind of calming the hormone levels down.
Some people are quite concerned about getting type 2 diabetes, and they say you should stay away from the sugars. But what about sugars in some of our fruits, like bananas are high in sugar, maybe oranges or apples? What are your thoughts in that regard? Should we steer clear of certain fruits, or are they okay?
My grandma had this great saying, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And it's always stuck with me. And every time I think of something, I'm like, always in moderation. Too much can cause imbalance. So they're okay, but just let's not overindulge ourselves and overdo things. Just my advice.
Cami, as men get older, you know, we really get concerned about our prostate health. Sometimes the prostate enlarges, making things a little more difficult. Are there any natural remedies you suggest that could potentially maybe shrink a man's prostate? Maybe some foods that may help?
Yeah, and a couple that come to mind would be the cordyceps mushroom as well as pine pollen. They're very good for men's health, and also removing the stresses from your body, bringing it into homeostasis so that your hormone levels are balanced, which can cause an issue of problems with prostate and other parts of men's function. So those are two that come to mind that I would recommend.
You know, a lot of my sports teams not making the playoffs causes me a lot of stress, so maybe I should kind of distance myself from some of those sports teams. Cami, sleep disorders like insomnia affect so many of us. What non-traditional methods have proven effective in your opinion?
So a lot of people like to take melatonin. I don't really recommend that one. Those are just kind of over-the-counter supplements you can buy. But the ones that have worked are the ones that you're not taking supplementation. So sleep coaches that can, kind of coach you and take away that fear of bedtime, or can help you with your sleep regulation and monitoring. But those can get a little costly and pricey, so it's not always best for everyone. But another one is sleep apnea. A lot of people suffer from sleep apnea because of stress and weight gain and things like that. So going to someone who can test you out and maybe you need the sleeping apparatus, those have proven really, really well for people with sleeping and insomnia and sleep problems.
The cold and flu season is just around the corner once again, Cammie. What ancient strategies or remedies do you suggest to maybe help boost our immune systems? I mean, for me, a lot of times I have blueberries just about every day on my cereal, or strawberries. A lot of the berries, I guess, have a lot of antioxidants in them.
Yeah, and antioxidants are great. And let's remember, we should be not only dealing with the cold and flu when it happens, but being preventative. So let's start now. Taking astragalus root is a really great one for boosting the antibodies in your body. And also it helps to reduce inflammation and helping with the respiratory health. So making sure your lungs and your upper respiratory are nice and healthy and strong to kind of prevent those viruses coming and entering the body. Elderberry is a classic, again, high in antioxidants, helping with upper respiratory, echinacea, things that we should be taking now to be preventative for when those things kind of hit. But when we do get those viruses, a lot of us will have sore throat. So taking marshmallow root is really great for soothing those mucous membranes when we're having those really hard coughs and things like that. So,
are there any foods that maybe we should be leery of, especially when it comes to seniors, maybe those who are most vulnerable, or even children they should maybe steer clear of?
Sugar is the biggest one. Sugar and salt, too much, right? Sugar is just wreaks havoc on your cellular health and your body. So staying as healthy and nutritious as possible with lots of great vegetables, that's the key.
And let's wrap it up with talking about specific foods, herbs, or lifestyle practices from traditional medicine that can maybe help individuals ward off common seasonal illnesses, or maybe how about some allergies too?
So bee pollen is a great one for seasonal allergies. And another one that I love are things that you can just find in your kitchen. So garlic and onions, making one of those fire ciders that, has maybe some peppercorns and cayenne pepper. So when you're using those warming spices, that really helps against some of these cold and flus that can enter the body.
And the garlic also keeps the vampires at bay, correct?
For Halloween, perfect timing.
Cammie Tanner is the founder behind Herbal Apothecary, located right here in Lethbridge, Alberta. Cammie, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless. Thanks for watching.